What's up, you guys? Welcome to trèSci Weekly, episode 48. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Ullman, alongside Tommy Salami, Tom K.
What's up, guys?
That's two deli meats jokes in a row. Back-to-back deli meats weeks.
That's
here, ladies and gentlemen. Kyle Kalita, the whiz kid Kalita over there.
On the comp.
On the stream, on the comp. How are you guys doing out there? Welcome to the show. Today, of course, is Monday, January 22nd, 2018. And
what number are we up to?
We're on episode number 48.
Ooh,
yeah.
Almost at 50.
Almost at 50. Getting there. Tom, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Hanging out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Chilling. Waiting for the cold, dark weather to go away.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. Same here. I feel like we've, just been in perpetual nighttime for...
That's what it seems like.
Yeah. It kind of stinks. Yeah. Good news is it hasn't been too cold this
yeah.
last
I
week.
like exercising in the garage that we have, but, you gotta go outside for that. So I appreciate the warmth when we get it.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you guys, of course, for joining in with us this week. This is our weekly show where we bring you guys the trending science news topics of the week and kind of offer our takes on it. Yeah, our insight and our insider info. We don't really have a whole lot of that. You, of course, can watch this show live on Monday nights on our YouTube channel, which, if you haven't subscribed to already yet, that would be awesome if you can go ahead and do that. Yeah, you better. If you like this video, thumb it up. If you don't, thumb it down.
Leave a comment.
Yeah, you can leave some comments. You can also tag trèSci in various social media posts that you see that might be about different science topics if you'd like us to discuss them on the show.
Yeah, whether you want to know more or you just want to be like, look at this.
Yeah. Check this out, guys.
Yeah.
We are, of course, on a whole bunch of different platforms. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. And all of those sites, you just plug in the name /trèSci Weekly, and you find us. And of course, your support on any and all of those platforms is much appreciated, as it helps us grow the stream and grow the brand.
Continue to cover the science news.
Exactly. So, Tom, we've got a pretty good show lined up for today.
Yes, we do.
I figure we would jump right into the lightning round. Unless you have anything else to tell the good people out there?
I do not.
All right. So then we'll bring up the first story, and we're going to begin with NASA and the Department of Energy's unveiling of KRUSTy.
KRUSTy, eh?
It's called KRUSTy, everybody. Yeah.
So we're bringing up the tweet. You want to start off by reading us the NASA tweet?
Sure. NASA says, we're testing a power source that could provide safe, efficient energy for future crewed missions to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. The system may be essential for day-to-day mission needs like lighting, water and oxygen, as well as fuel for the journey home. And then they have details on their webpage. So this was a live stream teleconference that they kind of announced earlier in the week. And they're talking a little bit about this new initiative to develop basically a portable nuclear reactor.
Yeah, so when you go to the moon or you land on Mars, you have some sort of power to get your infrastructure started.
Exactly.
So you need portable power, and they're going with nuclear, you said, right?
Yeah, so the details are such as what we're going to present here. So it's called KRUSTy for short. That stands for Kilopower Reactor using Stirling technology. And basically it is proprietary, kind of like these little pod capsules of lightweight, affordable fission reactors that may provide power for future space exploration missions. We've got a couple images to bring up that we can show you guys as well. The first one is kind of an artist's rendering of what it might look like being, deployed on Mars.
Okay.
And so you can see, Tom, they have 4 of them, 4 individual units set up, so they're not exactly really, really large.
And those 4 make up the little mini fission reactors?
So each one, I believe, is its own fission reactor. And so I guess before we move on...
That's what it looks like. And they're using fission nuclear power to generate the heat and the energy from it. But what is nuclear fission?
Yeah, we should explain a little bit about how that works. So Kyle, if you could bring up I guess it would probably be the third image that I sent you. That's called fission. Nuclear fission is a process by which, Tom, energy is kind of given off by heavier atoms that are undergoing sort of this nuclear chain reaction where they're splitting apart.
Yeah, so as opposed to fusion, where you fuse them and bring them together, the fission is the thing that, when we talk about breaking them apart. And by breaking the larger nuclei into two smaller nuclei and a few neutrons, you end up with slightly less mass from the end of that reaction. Mm-hmm. And like Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared, the mass that you lose from going from that big nucleus to the smaller nuclei, that mass is then converted into the energy that, in this case, the nuclear energy is that they're using for the bases that they're planning on the moon or Mars.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so when you're using nuclear fission as a method for producing energy, you have to use elements that are kind of higher up on the periodic table of elements.
Heavy ones, because you're breaking them into smaller ones.
Exactly. Right? So for this particular project that NASA is kind of working on right now, they're going to be using uranium-enriched cores. They'll basically start the chain reaction by shooting a neutron
at the uranium nuclei.
And then, so this is kind of like an interesting concept when you think about it in terms of what's going on the atomic level, where you've got this nucleus, it's got some protons and neutrons, and we know that the protons are positively charged, and the neutrons don't have a charge. We know that things that have the same charge don't want to be near each other.
Yeah, like in terms the same pole of a magnet,
right,
repelling each other.
In terms of electromagnetism forces, they want to move away from one another. So if you kind of increase the spacing of these protons that are in the nucleus by adding more neutral neutrons to it, they grow and they eventually get far enough away where the atom will actually split apart. And that's basically how
the process of fission.
Right, start this kind of chain reaction of fission. And so this process will generate a lot of heat. And if we can, Kyle, if you don't mind going back to the second photo now, I kind of misordered them for you. This is going to produce some heat, and that heat energy is going to basically be utilized by something called a Stirling engine, which was developed way back in the 1800s.
So it's kind of like a classic piston engine almost.
Exactly.
And they're using the heat from the nuclear reaction to power this engine, and then using that mechanical energy to make electricity.
Correct. Yep, which is why they call it a kilopower reactor, because the electricity that they're basically going to be able to generate through this means is somewhere between 1 and 10 kilowatts per unit that they put out there.
Exactly.
So
my next question to you, John, is: are we trying to use this technology here on Earth? Is this a good, efficient way to make energy?
Not exactly.
Right? Kind of a leading question. But so why would we want to use this in space then? What's the draw? You know.
So yeah, the advantage to using something like this for spacefaring missions is that the portability of it makes it possible to deploy these pods out, have them land on the surface of the moon or Mars or wherever we eventually want to set up infrastructure for the first human outposts on some faraway, body. So
this sort of seems to be the way to have a portable first energy system for a new base.
Exactly. On last week's show, we mentioned that some researchers found that there is water ice, large deposits of water ice
under the surface of Mars.
Yep, right underneath the surface. So we said that's so great because that's a viable source of water for future astronauts. But we didn't really get into how would those astronauts, the first pioneering astronauts to make it to Mars, how would they actually extract that ice and melt it down into a liquid form and then maybe separate out the impurities, or how do you actually go about using anything that might be available as a resource to you
on the surface,
if you don't have any power to start with. And so this is actually a really wonderful initiative.
Pretty exciting. Find a way to get power onto Places we've never even been to.
Yeah, finally a real logistical first step, which is really exciting. I wanted to ask you, Tom, what was your kind of take home on the announcement of this one? So NASA typically, they tend to make a bigger splash than many of the other agencies as far as, science communities and whatnot. This one seemed to kind of maybe not make as many headlines as I expected it to based on what it was they were actually announcing. Do you think that has anything to do with NASA trying to play it safe because it is nuclear energy based and people
Possibly.
are kind of still not so sure about trusting?
Yeah, I also think it has something to do with that it's not really a new technology or a new technique. It's sort of just repurposing an older technique into a different version of an engine that's portable.
Yeah.
So it's like sort of combining a few different disciplines and bringing them all together. And the end is amazing. Like, we're going to be able to get power in places we've never really imagined.
Yeah.
And the implications are awesome, but I guess the logistics of actually coming up with it isn't brand new stuff.
Sure. I think that's a fair point, and I think that's actually, that plays off of my point as well, too, where I think NASA really made it a point to say that this is built off of existing technologies, so your fear of what ifs of what could happen if something goes wrong are actually, don't worry about it so much.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for a long time. We know what we're up against here. So, yeah, very cool.
Cool stuff. That's number 1 in the book, NASA. Moving on. Number 2. This time we're talking about mathematics exposes gerrymandering.
Oh, God.
So this one comes to us by way of Nature News and Comment. And the tweet that they put out said maths, which, first of all, who says maths?
Let's get this. Let's just get this out in the public.
I'm not a fan. It's either math or mathematics.
Right.
I can't just put an S on the end of math.
I've been seeing this everywhere nowadays. This is a terrible trend. It's math. No S.
Exactly.
All right.
If you want to put an S, it's got to be mathematics.
Exactly. Get it straight, people.
But the tweet reads, maths played a key part. See, it just sounds bad. Played a key part in helping a court case by demonstrating the unlawful use of partisan gerrymandering. So right off the bat, I want to talk about gerrymandering, what it is. Would we be able to bring up the image with the blue and green squares? So, you know which one I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we're talking about gerrymandering, what we're talking about is changing the lines, the district lines in a certain state. In this case, we're talking about North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how you draw your boundary lines to include a certain type of people within a certain district to sway the results of an election based on simply how you draw the lines.
Excuse me.
Oh, man. So by drawing... Excuse me.
Yeah, no worries.
So by drawing your lines in different ways, you can create different results of the election simply by drawing the boundaries of your districts in a different way.
Right.
So what gerrymandering is when you purposefully create district lines in a way that is simply to sway the direction of the vote, the election.
Stinky.
Not any particular reason to do it that way except for skew the results. So that's gerrymandering. So how did we use math to prove that there was gerrymandering going on in North Carolina?
So, a 3-judge U.S. federal court just released their decision on this particular situation here in North Carolina. And they did find that gerrymandering was prevalent in the 2012, I believe, and 2016. I don't remember exactly which elections it was for, but I think it was for electing representatives to the House of Representatives.
Okay.
I think so. But you guys can fact check me on that one. And a Duke University researcher named Jonathan Mattingly basically created an algorithm that would test out a whole bunch of different
district lines.
Right.
Like, what if you put the lines here? What if you put them here?
Right.
And it did it 24,000 times.
Right. and presented his research to the court system and showed that in literally, I'll quote it here, quote, every one of the 24,000 computer-drawn districts was less gerrymandered than either the 2012 or 2016 voting districts drawn by state legislators, end quote.
So using a mathematical algorithm showing if we did district lines in all these other different ways, they're all more partisan and less gerrymandered than the way they physically made them to be.
Right.
They specifically made them to not work the way you would want them to.
There are at least 24,000
better ways to draw the district lines.
Exactly, in other words. So the courts looked at this and decided that it was done on purpose then, which is not too much of a surprise.
Exactly. And this particular case was in North Carolina, but this is a problem all over the place.
Yeah.
Voting and who gets elected into office is a huge issue everywhere. So there's gerrymandering all across the United States, as well as right now there's a big issue of it going on in the United Kingdom. Mm-hmm. And another point to bring up is there's a lot more people than ever, and we've mentioned this on trèSci a few times, that the census is an important thing. It's coming up in 2020, and once you take a census and get a recalculation of the population, how many people you have in a certain area, you usually redraw your district lines once you have the new logistics and the new numbers. Yeah. So once we redraw them, it would be nice to use things like mathematical algorithms to take into account things like this to make sure that we get real representative voting and not some gerrymandered falsehood of what's actually going on.
Yeah. Do you think, Tom, that now that we have the power of technology, we have the technologies behind running simulations like this, that it shouldn't be done on a 10-year cycle like the census is directed?
You would think it would become more of an integrated thing.
Yeah.
That just
yearly
way of life. Yeah.
We redraw the lines because we have a way to do it that's pretty efficient.
Maybe one day,
yeah. It's not like a massive undertaking for a department of the interior or whatever to undertake. I feel like that would be a nice way to integrate scientific research into our policy making. But of course, that takes initiative to do.
Yes, it does. So I like that one. Math and science coming to help us.
Yeah. Save us with numbers. Number 3, Tom. We're moving on. This comes by way via Science News. They tweeted out, all mice given a new vaccine survived lethal doses of flu strains in recent tests. And the story is titled, New Twist on a Flu Vaccine Revs Up the Body's Army of Virus Killers. So, Tom, the flu.
Yeah. This year, it's bad in particular. It's bad, I feel like, every year.
Yeah, I feel like every year we talk about it, and every year it's like, oh, it's bad flu season. But yeah, there has been actual evidence that this year's...
is actually...
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see the graphic on the tweet here of where the flu activity is most prevalent, and it's pretty high in a lot of states, besides the really, really cold ones, like Maine and Montana.
Yeah.
It has been a pretty active flu season, and this story is taking a look at a researcher who is trying to come up with a method to detect the flu within people and figure out a way to basically come up with a vaccine that
a more general vaccine,
right? Yeah, that can target more than one flu strain.
Exactly.
Because the flu is a little bit tricky, right? In terms of how do we fight against it when there are so many different variations of it,
and those variations are always undergoing changes themselves through mutations. Mm-hmm.
So basically, this was a research endeavor that was sparked because right now current flu vaccines are only supposedly around 10% effective.
Yeah, I've read anywhere between like 10 and 20 to sometimes up to 30 and 40% if they get a really good estimate of the strains that will be the most prevalent. Mm-hmm. But I've heard that it can go as low as 10% efficient of blocking the flu virus.
Right.
So obviously we want to go up from there.
Yeah. And so this particular researcher from UCLA looked at different strains and tried to figure out how to take the weakest ones and allow the body's normal immune response to basically get the chance to signal
to sort of
antibody production.
Yeah, because when we were reading, the way it seems to me is that the way the virus becomes successful is that it allows itself to go undetected, where it doesn't let your body have that immune response that it needs in order to fight off the flu.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to continue, I think that's what we're sort of getting into the case of we're not coming up with a universal flu vaccine yet, but we're sort of getting closer to realizing the way our body needs to react in general to any sort of strain of flu, as well as trying to break down the armor of the flu itself and try and figure out where its weak spots are and how we can get into sort of creating an immune response to almost any flu.
Yeah.
So we're kind of getting there.
Yeah. I mean, the best defense is our own
immune system.
And so the mechanism here is actually really clever. So what happens, Tom, when you get some pretty bad flu strain is the flu itself has some proteins, the influenza virus has some proteins that basically inhibit or stop your body's own production of a protein that is called the type 1 interferon protein. And that is basically the alert system, right?
Yeah, so it stops the alert system, and that's how it goes undetected.
Right. So what these researchers did was they found 8 variations of the flu strain that was susceptible to the alert system, combined them into one strain that they then made into a vaccine. And a vaccine is sort of like a reduced potency of any type of virus that your body can then take.
Come up with antibodies
and come up with antibodies too, exactly. So when they tested this out, they tested it out on mice, and they found that the 40 mice that they tested the vaccine that they gave to the mice, when they then gave the virus, all 40 of those mice lived, and then the ones that they did not give the vaccine to, all 40 of those mice died. So, pretty black and white here. Like,
I think that's the most interesting part of this study as a whole, where it's cool that we're learning how to isolate the flu virus itself and come up with some sort of vaccination against it. But it's amazingly impressive from a first trial of 40 mice where all of them lived who received the vaccine when given a fatal dose of the flu.
Yeah.
So that's promising right off the bat.
Absolutely. So, it's not the entire breadth of the influenza virus, and we don't have, of course, this vaccine produced, and there's no promise that it's going to do.
But it looks like we're learning more about it little by little. What does this part of the virus do? What does this do? How could we do this? And that's the beginning steps to coming up with a universal.
Yeah. Did you get the flu shot this season?
I didn't. I've gotten it quite a few seasons. This one I haven't.
I did not either, and I've actually never gotten it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, which I think we've talked about a little bit on trèSci before. It's just one of those things where, like, I know that I should, and I understand why it's wrong for me to not, but I just, I don't come at you guys like the White Knight, Sometimes all the research and all the benefits, and you just still don't do it. So, if they can improve the efficacy to making it, way higher than 10 to 20%,
I'm sure more people might do it.
Yeah, then I'd be definitely more inclined to go out and do it.
Yeah.
But there you have it.
Yeah, but
haven't gotten sick yet. So
they finally made it readily available. Like, you can get a flu shot at CVS, all kinds of places.
I know. I really don't have an excuse anymore.
That's the only thing I was gonna say. It's becoming more into our regular society, where I hope the vaccinations themselves get a lot better, and we as a society do a better job of getting them.
Yeah,
they're not
over time. They're not even expensive anymore.
No, they're not that bad.
I know.
So in the chat, we had from the last one we were talking about the gerrymandering.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that both parties do it. That's a great point to make. It's not just the Republicans.
Yeah.
That whenever you can win an election by redrawing some lines, you're going to do it, right?
You ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
That's a good quote from my old friend AJ.
Yep.
You ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Exactly. So then Andy says, hopefully the cases that have been litigated recently will serve as a precedent for all states drawing their lines with nonpartisan committees. Exactly. You just want them to be a representative sample of who actually lives there.
Yeah.
not that crazy.
Yeah.
And then Nancy said 10% is terrible. Yeah, so it can be as low as 10%, and it depends on year to year how well they make up the vaccine.
Right.
Because you need to make the vaccine ahead of time. They're pretty much banking on how much they're predicting what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So it has an inherent uncertainty in it already.
Yeah. They're guessing based on the probability of genetic mutations taking place, and genetic mutations are just totally random. So
yeah, it's tough.
Can only do so well at that.
Yeah. And then Nancy asked, did Kyle get the flu shot?
Kyle, did you get your flu shot?
He's over there.
So, yeah, we would be in a lot of trouble if somebody came in here with the flu, for sure.
Oh, man.
All right. Moving on. Number 4.
Ooh, I like this one. The Westeros Ice Wall.
Take it away, Tom.
So Westeros is the land of everything in Game of Thrones. That's the fictional world.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not asking the question, is it possible for the wall to exist in Game of Thrones?
Okay.
Because a lot of weird stuff exists in Game of Thrones,
right.
like dragons and magic. But I want to look at the logistical question. Could you have that ice wall? It's a 700 foot tall ice wall that's like super thick, and it's been separating the north end of Westeros from the White Walkers, which are sort of like the undead.
Mm-hmm.
And they said it's been doing this for about 8,000 years.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, it was built by like Bran the Builder. I think Zach Harriman told me that at a party one time. But I'm pretty sure that's correct. But so the thing is, if you had a 700 foot ice wall, what would actually happen is that it would begin to flow on itself.
Mm-hmm.
As like any glacier would that's on a mountain. It all would flow downhill like gravity.
Okay.
And what you would end up with is more of a mound that you would probably be able to walk up and over.
Got it.
So ice is a flowing thing.
Yeah.
And in this case, they also have like a drawbridge where they build the wall up and then they go underneath it. But what would happen is all that ice would just come down and kill anybody who was in that.
Yeah.
Because they would all flow into that empty space.
Right, filling in the space there.
Yeah, so it's weird thinking about ice, but when you have that much of it,
yeah.
it ends up flowing.
Yeah.
So technically, you wouldn't be able to have a structure this big in the real world.
But they do have walls of ice.
Yes, they do.
In places, right?
Yeah.
So
I think it's just the sheer size of this.
Okay.
Being just 700 feet of thick ice.
Yeah.
It's just too much ice.
I mean, that is a glacier.
Yeah, basically a glacier itself.
Yeah. Interesting. So I don't watch Game of Thrones.
Okay.
I've been told that I should.
I've seen it all.
Oh, okay.
I like it. Yeah, I've seen every season. I'm a fan.
Cool.
I'll be watching the new one when it comes back.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know too much about it. I can see that it's a high fantasy sort of, you know, setting.
We got knights and dragons.
Yeah.
And
I like Lord of the Rings. I feel like I would like this a lot, but just no time. You know? There's no time for anything, Tom.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
this article reminded me of when Neil deGrasse Tyson does his tweets of the science of movies.
Yes.
And so many people give him flack, and there was a lot of people in this article's comments just, you know, complaining, you know, it's a show, it's this and that.
We know.
It's fun. It's fun to look at.
Is it possible?
A situation and be like, is that possible in our own real world?
Yeah.
Excluding magic. You know, it's cool to ask that question.
Yeah, definitely.
Agreed.
Yeah. Don't get all offended, people.
Right? It's okay.
Seriously. Tom, when are the glaciers coming back down?
The glaciers coming back down?
Yeah.
They always make their way back.
They're doing it.
Yeah.
Soon.
I think in like 10,000 years, 15,000, something like that.
And then we'll get Long Island
2.0.
2.0.
Yeah, a new...
Yeah, baby.
a new Fire Island and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do it. So that's Game of Thrones. That's the wall. It's magic, you know? It's fun.
It's all magic, people.
Yeah.
Trey Madge.
All right, moving on to the next one. This one's a little bit of a follow-up from last week.
Yes. This one comes by way from news from Science Magazine. They say, sea turtles may be more resilient against climate change than we thought. And yeah, this was kind of bouncing off of what we talked about last week, Tom, where we had mentioned that climate change is leading to this huge gender disparity in terms of newborn
sea turtles, because they actually rely on the ambient pressure of the sand that they're growing in to determine their sex when they're born.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that determines it, actually.
Yeah. So a little bit warmer temperatures,
and you
get more female.
Way more females.
So what they're finding in Australia, near the Great Barrier Reef, was that as many as 99% of new hatchlings were coming out female, as opposed to the 1% that were hatching male. And many of the outlets...
It seems like a huge problem.
Yeah.
99% female, we're like, that's it. They're done.
This was making its way across the internet like you would have no idea. Where a lot of people were, blaming climate change for this potential really big problem for the sea turtles. And I saw this go up early this past week, and I thought we should definitely mention it and follow up on that story because
there's a little more to it than just that.
Yeah. Right. We had actually mentioned at the end of commentating last week that it's kind of odd. Sea turtles have been around for a long time, so you would think that they should hopefully be able to adapt to variations in temperature in terms of the climate.
They've been around since the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Around over 200 million years, sea turtles have been around.
Right. And so there has been some climate variability.
Some at
least in that time.
I think the only thing that I was reading about the article where they were saying that we might have to really be concerned for is just the rate of the warming.
Right.
Where that they think the species as a whole over a long period of time can adapt to these changes. But within generational periods, it might be too much of a temperature increase.
Of course.
So that might be the only thing to look for, but turtles are resilient.
Yeah.
By just the sheer fact for how long they've been around.
Yeah. So let's dive in. Let's talk about
what's really going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Why this is kind of a counterpoint to our previous point. This study tells us a little bit more about
the mating behavior.
Right, behind sea turtles. And granted, these are a different group of sea turtles. This comes from researchers down at Florida Atlantic University. And they found that female sea turtles actually only have one male partner per nest of eggs.
Yes.
So
but she has multiple partners overall.
Correct. So female sea turtles can mate with multiple males in one mating season, but they have a way to hold on to the sperm and then lay one nest of eggs per male that they mated with. So
even if there are less males per female, the fact that each female can get multiple litters in one season, that changes a lot of the logistical questions and the math behind figuring out how many male or female turtles there actually are.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that they sort of didn't take into account for.
Yeah. And what this study did primarily was they looked at DNA from each of the nests and found that,
it's just
there's
one.
There's no male that's impregnating multiple females. It's one male per female per nest. So that means, and the males, don't really come up on land that often because they don't need to lay any eggs. So they're primarily just in the ocean. So they're hard to count.
Mm-hmm.
And what this told these researchers is that there are far more males, I think, than they originally accounted for. And so...
And that it might not be that big of an issue to have such a large excess of females if there are still a good enough males and a rich enough mating season where they're getting enough mates that even if there's a large disparity in the sexes, and these are only in certain areas, certain beaches, that this might not be as large of an issue as we thought it was last week.
Right. Because the argument is that even if all of the new hatchlings are female, that just increases the number of
females that can make nests.
Exactly, right? That just overall makes the population
It's
climb.
just a little bit more complicated of a problem than they thought it was.
Right.
But still, I think an important one and a story that we'll continue to follow.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you think, Tom, that this aspect of the story sometimes doesn't make its way to the general public on purpose even? Like, I don't know, like a lot of the outlets were really heavy-handed in pointing a finger
one,
at climate change for this, supposed problem that's going to crash the sea turtle population.
Yeah, it seemed like a really convenient way to talk about climate change, where you can see a direct correlation where the rising temperature is destroying a species.
Yeah.
That's a strong story to go after.
Definitely.
So I could see that,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little more complicated than that, as usually is every climate change story.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
That's a really fair point.
All right, so that was sea turtles.
Sea turtles are back, baby.
I like turtles. The next one, we're sticking in the ocean. This one's pretty cool.
Yeah. This is a funny one that I just felt like we needed to say something about.
So this one's coming
coming
to us from Natural Geographic. Their tweet says, after being swallowed, the octopus appeared to have grabbed the dolphin's larynx with a tentacle, effectively suffocating him to death.
Yeah,
so
this is crazy stuff.
It's basically, he's saying, if I'm going down, you're going down with me.
Yeah.
Or what I think might be more plausible is that it's being swallowed, right? It's being eaten. It knows where the mouth is, and it's looking to grab something, and it found something. It just happened to be what the dolphin used to breathe, right?
Yeah. Probably, yeah.
Something like that.
I don't know, man.
Or maybe he knew.
Yeah.
They are smart.
Yeah. So, I guess the story goes that this bottlenose dolphin washes up on...
And they usually see tentacles hanging out.
Yeah. On Stratham Beach in Australia. And, yeah, there's just, as you can see in the photo, there's tentacles hanging out of his mouth. And so they did a necropsy on it to just see what happened, because dolphins don't normally wash up on ashore like that. And they found that the dolphin was otherwise totally healthy.
So it was, that's how you could tell it was asphyxiated. Is that how you say that word? That it was...
Yeah, death by asphyxiation.
Exactly, thank you.
You're welcome. This is the first time first time that death by asphyxiation by octopus has ever been recorded. The octopus was pretty large. They say in the article that it had a tentacle span of 4.2 feet. So that's, it's pretty long. But they think that the dolphin probably just got a little bit greedy, where it, wanted to eat the whole octopus whole instead
before it killed it effectively.
Yeah.
I read that a lot of times they'll thrash around a lot and try and literally rip them in half.
Yeah.
And that even after the octopus is ripped in half, that its tentacles and legs can sometimes still move around.
Yeah.
So he probably got a little too ballsy and went in for the eat when it wasn't totally ready to be eaten.
Yeah. Now, what do you think, Tom? Do you think you think the octopus just was grabbing onto anything it could grab onto in its last clutches of life? Or do you think the octopus was really I'm going to kill this dolphin? I'm going to figure out a way.
I do think this one might be more of an accident. I do.
Okay.
Even though octopuses are crazy.
Yeah.
I've
seen a video or two on the craftiness
jars.
Of octopus in the ocean.
But yeah.
So much to the point where I'm so fascinated by them that I think I might stop eating calamari just because out of respect for the octopus. I already have a weird enough diet as it is. No red meat, no poultry. I do eat seafood, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm not.
Not a vegan.
I'm not a vegan, but I'm not really a vegetarian. I eat cheese.
I'm a
John. So I might write off octopus and calamari because octopus are dope, dude.
They are cool.
They're really cool.
Don't underestimate an octopus.
Don't. They got 8 legs. They're coming for you.
Got another animal story coming up.
We have a lot of them. This next one is about the Cockadoodledoo.
The rooster.
The rooster. Comes again from News from Science Magazine. On Twitter they say, a rooster's crow can reach over 140 decibels. So how do they keep from losing their hearing? That's a pretty good question.
Yeah, so they're so loud that how do they not hurt themselves? Because after all, their ears are the closest to the crow than anybody else's.
Mm-hmm. They measured 143 decibels of volume right beyond the beak.
So that's pretty loud, right?
That's really loud. I did a quick little calculation here, Tom, because decibels follow this weird
logarithmic scale.
Yeah, where every 10 decibels you're actually doubling the amount of noise coming from a source. So 140 decibels, give or take, is about 32 times the loudness or the volume of when you run a food blender. And
that's pretty
Kyle
loud
and I
already.
know that's pretty loud.
That's already pretty loud. If
Yeah.
you had 32 blenders going at once, that'd be impressive.
Yeah, don't give Chris any ideas. So, I have a short quote here. They say that when a rooster's beak is fully open, as it is when it's crowing, a quarter of the ear canal completely closes and soft tissue covers 50% of the eardrum.
So it just happens to cover its own eardrum as its mouth opens
Right.
to crow.
So
Comes
that's
out
how
with
they
a little protective flap.
Right, that's how they basically don't go deaf from their own crowing, from their own cockadoodledoo. I wish that I had that ability because if
Put a flap over.
well, not that I have a particularly loud voice, but when I would just get tired of listening to people, all I'd have to do is go.
And that's it. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of an interesting little
And
tidbit.
then the last thing that we ended up reading up about that was that a crazy fact is that roosters can actually grow back some of their inner ear hair tissues.
That's true.
That if they do get damaged, so as well as protecting their ear from their own crows, they can actually regenerate a little bit of their own damaged hearing if they needed to do that.
Yeah, which is good stuff. Checking in with the chat. Let's see, how far back do we have? Wow, lots of comments. That's awesome. Andy says I haven't watched the most recent season. Needs to watch all of it again. In reference to Game of Thrones.
Yep.
Nancy says science is magic, and she also says I feel a little better about the sea turtles now.
That they're not all bad news.
Yes, that's good though. That's what we like to do here on trèSci. Is don't worry about it. Unless you really need to worry about it, don't worry about it. It's all good.
All right, moving on from the roosters. So the next one comes to us from the ISS National Lab. That's the International Space Station.
Mm-hmm.
So the tweet coming from them says, CASIS. What does that stand for?
CASIS is the Center for the Advancement of Science in Space, and that's the manager
of the ISS.
Marvel is definitely the
So
top
actually teamed up with
comic book company in America. Marvel characters appear in comic books where they started, but then
they presented the Guardians of the Galaxy Space Station Challenge. And they say, discover how this exciting collaboration came together. We're looking for bright ideas from young explorers destined to become space science heroes.
That could be you.
Actually, you have to be between ages 13 and 18.
Oh.
So it can't be us.
It
could be you.
Right. It could be you. It could be Ryan Nash. No, I'm just kidding. So, what did they do here, Tom? This is a nice little initiative where they are basically issuing a contest.
Yeah, come up with a little experiment. One that we can do in particular on the ISS. And what's different about the conditions there is that there's no gravity on the International Space Station.
Yeah.
So they're saying come up with, there's two categories. One is Groot, the little guy who grows his arms and can move. So there's a plant-based one.
I am Groot.
Yes.
Yep.
And then there's the little rocket raccoon.
Mm-hmm.
That's his name, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like the more tech guy. And you can either pick one of the categories, either the tech one or the plant one, and come up with an experiment that you would want to do in particular on the ISS, the International Space Station, where there is no gravity.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a pretty nice
cool
initiative there. I would be stoked if I was, in middle school or high school, and my idea for an experiment to do, on the International Space Station got accepted, and they actually did it. That would be really awesome. So if you or someone you know might be interested in this, you can submit your entry by going to the website that they have there. Your entry must
all
be
right on one page.
Yeah. Your entry must be submitted by January 31st, 2018. So start brainstorming now if you want to do it.
That's a pretty cool one. And this story reminded me of when I was working with you at Brookhaven National Lab. We went to some of the elementary schools, and one elementary school in particular told me they joined some sort of contest, not this one, but just a science contest in particular. They ended up making it past the first round, and they ended up receiving funding for like 3 to 5 years of a couple $100 or $1,000 grant each year on supplies.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a cool way to, as like a community or a school, try and come up with something and then maybe get something back out of it.
Yeah.
So these things are pretty cool.
Absolutely. And I really like that Marvel, went out on a limb to do this kind of thing, because aside from a little bit more brand awareness, like
which is already there.
Yeah, they're not really making too much.
So it's a nice connection.
Yeah. Good for them. And the last one, Tom, I've been showing this to everybody.
This one's cool.
Yeah. Nintendo, the old video game gurus.
They are at Nintendo America.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
They announced a new project for their current console, the Switch. It's called Nintendo Labo. And you guys can see here in the little video that's playing. Actually, I don't know, Kyle, if you have the volume up, but if you, keep it killed, because I don't want us to get a copyright strike on this one. Yeah. Basically, Tom, what it is, it's kind of like these do-it-yourself cardboard kits
that fold out and they come together and they all boop boop.
Yep, they give
together.
you some instructions on how to cut out and build these
apparatuses.
Like one of them is, as you can see, is a little piano. Another one's a fishing rod, and they're tied together with string and this and that. And then
they also interact with the Nintendo Switch gaming system.
Right. So the controllers on the Nintendo Switch already have a little motion sensor to them, and they rumble and whatnot. So you can put them into this cardboard apparatus that you've built at home, and
that's
then
pretty cool.
On screen, will be some interactive software that works with it. And I thought this was a really nice idea, nice initiative for it's almost like Nintendo's getting into the Lego sphere of you build it, that's
you build it and then you play with it.
That's the fun thing about it, and
I think this is going to be the beginning for this type of stuff. I see this really catching on.
Yeah, I hope really so. Cool. They're set to release on April 20th, 420, the oldest way. They will be somewhat expensive. From what I understand, the first kit is like a bundle kit of
you get multiple.
Yeah, a whole bunch of different things to try out. And I think that one's actually even cheaper at the either $60 or $70 price point.
And they actually have moving parts inside of them.
Yeah, I mean, they look pretty...
they look legit.
They look pretty
in-depth.
You can
color them in even.
And then there's the robot pack one. That's a separate kit all by itself, I think. And that one, I believe, is actually even a little bit more expensive at $80.
Because that one looked like a big backpack with moving parts.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would like to get one of these when it comes out.
I'm really
mess around with it, see what we can do.
I'm really intrigued by this, and I would almost feel like you and I would be good potential people to do a product review on this sort of thing. I already happen to have a Switch, so we would only be the cost of one of these little Labo kits. And I don't know, you guys out there in the chat, if we were to do a product review of Nintendo Labo, what do you think? Would that be something that you would check out? Let us know.
Yeah, it seems pretty cool. As well as the simple fact that it's really cool. It's something that you build and interact with to play games with. I can see this being utilized in some sort of educational type way.
Yeah.
Even if it's not with the Nintendo Switch technology itself, just having the easy, cheaper, buildable material interacting with an electronic like tablet or screen, I could see that being a huge new market for kids' toys and things like that.
Yeah. I would like to see...
As well as maybe learning things, yeah.
I hope that the way that this kind of is received and kind of maybe trend sets for the future of what I think the target audience is for this being kids, is that I hope that Nintendo sort of creates this environment where if your young child wants to use a tablet or something to interact with, you have to build something first.
Build it, play with it as a toy.
Instead of just giving them the device and then just, all right, you go for it. It would be nice, right, if parents had more of a one-on-one approach and said, all right, well, we're going to do this. This is going to be our project. It's going to take, from what I hear, some of the kits are going to take 2 hours to build. So that's a real
Lego
project. Yeah, you have to actually commit some time to it. So I would like to see, our society maybe shift gears a little bit, because I do think that although
we're just going straight to here's a tablet,
right, and although
yeah.
it's going to be necessary for the future generations
Yeah.
to be more adept at using the technology that we already have,
that's a cool way to
yeah,
bring in a building aspect and incorporate it with technology.
Exactly.
Pretty cool.
All right, let's check in with the chat one more time.
Kayla says, "You have a Switch?" Question mark.
Oh, true that. True that.
So it's actually the girlfriend's.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It is. No, it's her Switch. I did purchase it for her as a gift. But,
oh, nice.
But it's her Switch.
So yeah, we're definitely gonna have to get our hands on one of those, put it together, and see what we can do with it.
Yeah. KRUSTy says, "I want to see you guys." You two guys actually doing something.
Like demo.
Yeah. Just instead of just blowing smoke out of our butts. So let's move on to the Friday poll.
See what happened with that.
This was an interesting week, Tom. So you guys will remember the poll this week was college ruled paper versus graphing paper, right? Sometimes,
yes, it was.
Yeah. Sometimes, the application is, of course, sometimes you need the graphing paper, and sometimes you need
But
the
if
college
if you could pick between the two
Right.
for one assignment,
what would you pick? And the voting was tight, but college ruled paper, Tom, won the Friday poll with 16-15 in the voting.
Just by one.
Just by one. So it was neck and neck. Yeah, I thought this would be kind of an interesting, not so much science-related thing.
But more of like a school academic type thing.
Exactly. And, we've made very good use of both college ruled and graphing paper together. So, yeah, this was kind of an interesting one. I was really, you saw it because you texted me, but when I text out a lot of the people on my texting list for doing this poll, I started getting a whole bunch of responses in at the same time, and everybody was just responding with college ruled. So I saw these incoming texts, and I was like,
college ruled.
Oh yeah, college is awesome. It ruled, man. So then I just started texting people back the picture of Asher Roth, the I Love College song. Yeah, that was a pretty funny move.
Exactly.
Pretty good.
One thing that I thought of about this one was that if you remember, because besides college ruled paper, you can also have just like classic note paper that you would get in like elementary or middle school.
Yeah.
And it was life-changing for me when I first started using college ruled paper, because I wrote super small and it would fit in between the lines so much easier, and I just ended up writing a lot just neater because it was just more compact.
Yeah.
And my handwriting became a lot more legible, actually.
Nice.
So I wish I would have caught on to that a little earlier.
Yeah, I actually had terrible handwriting as a kid growing up too. In like first or second grade, my teacher gave me like a D in handwriting, and I was like,
whatever.
Who cares? Yeah. And then my handwriting actually became much better in time also. Quick shout out. Our one friend Ryan Nash gave the honorable mention to toilet paper. Didn't cast a vote.
He just said toilet paper.
Said toilet paper.
What a bully, man.
Yeah, seriously. And a lot of people commented on the moleskins. They were like, well, I'll vote this way, either college ruled or graphing, but I prefer overall the moleskins. You know what I'm talking about? They're like the leather bounds. They're kind of like, they come in all sizes, but they're most popular is like they're kind of yay big. Those are really nice. So marble notebooks. Marble notebooks. Yeah. I should have made this a bigger poll, more options, but
Marble books remind me. I always had to get that for like a writing class where you had to like write poems in them.
Yep.
So I always associated with hating those. I was like, I hate marble books.
Yeah.
Nope, I don't want those.
Yeah. Get them out of here. Is there anything better though, Tom, than a fresh notebook with blank pages and nothing but your ideas to fill with them?
What about like 5 folder pockets built into the
subjects? Yeah,
you get the big 5-star.
You get the
ones.
mead binder. Yeah, and
you
it's
get
got the
folders
zipper.
in it. Yeah.
Yep, the folders.
You're good to go.
Yeah, dude.
You drop it, it falls down the stairs.
That's what I'm talking about.
But I like what Carrie said about we should be doing something. I really think that the Switch is going to be awesome when we get our hands on something like that.
Yeah.
And we're still thinking of stuff to do, like demos and fun and cool things to put on stream, but...
We got some ideas.
We're getting there.
Yeah, we got some ideas.
Don't worry, guys.
Yep. So with that, wow, our half hour, or our hour is pretty much already up. Thank you guys for joining in with us, and of course, we will see you next week.
Don't forget to tag us.
Yep.
Or follow, like, comment, do all the good stuff.
Yep. Give us money on Patreon. Do all that good stuff. No, we'll see you guys, of course, next week, and have a wonderful rest of your week, everybody.
Yep. Adios. Take care, everybody.